I'm working on a game that takes place in a huge procedural city, and at some point I realized that it's been missing something that I actually love seeing in real cities: abstract art. I'm talking about things like interior paintings and sculptures in the city's parks, so I decided to add some. Oh, but first a quick announcement. Venture City Environment Demo has finally been approved for release on Steam, and it will be coming on March 26, 2025. The demo is a showcase of the procedural environment and won't feature the full planned gameplay such as the NPCs, factions, and apartment customization, because I'm still working on those things. But if you love city breaks and exploring immersive game worlds like I do, or are just curious about what's possible with procedural generation, you might enjoy the demo. Now back to the procedural art. Here's the challenge. My city is very large and is fully generated at runtime, which means that handmade sculptures or art pieces are out of the question because no matter how many I would add, they will eventually repeat. Repetition is fine for certain things like furniture or plants, as those items often repeat in real life as well. But art has to look like it was made specifically for the place it's in. There are, of course, things like cheap repeating art prints in real life too, but that's not the vibe I'm going for. I also can't rely on pre-baked procedural items for similar reasons, so I have to generate all the art at runtime. There are a few problems with this approach though. First of all, creating textures pixel by pixel or geometry vertex by vertex on the CPU is very slow, so I have to use built-in GPU techniques to tackle this task. And the second, more important problem is that real artworks are creative and diverse by their nature, so there's no way I can recreate the full range of art found in real life procedurally. That's why I would have to pick a single style that is possible to imitate somewhat plausibly. Let's start with the paintings. I immediately gave up on the idea of recreating paintings in a realistic style, or generally anything that depicts real objects, even though theoretically it would be possible to create some kind of collages of pre-rendered, painted objects that could pass for a real painting. There would be the same problem that I mentioned before: repetition. The players would quickly notice that the objects in the paintings repeat exactly, which is not something that happens in real-life art. So after some experimentation, I settled on an abstract pop art style where I could combine a number of very simple base patterns into a single image, in a style that is reminiscent of screen printing techniques. Here's how it works. There are 3 base patterns, which are very simple, blurred, halftone patterns or noises. Each pattern is picked at random out of a set with a random scale. Each one has a noise and a threshold applied to it, which creates jagged edges and variation, imitating print. Each painting inherits its color from the painting's color palette, and then they are simply added together. The palette of each painting is generated from the colors of the interior it spawns in according to color theory. Interiors with muted colors, for example, will generally create paintings with similarly subtle color palettes, and bright colored interiors will have saturated paintings. And of course, there is a randomness factor, so this is not always the case. And by the way, the randomized parameters aren't simply random. They have predefined ranges and nonlinear distributions that I've arrived at through extensive experimentation, just to make sure that the artworks are for the most part pleasing to the eye. The resulting paintings are varied enough, although of course you can still recognize repeating halftone patterns in them. But I think it's not a big deal, as halftone techniques are common for this style of prints in real life too. And the best part is, I can just use the standard Unreal Engine material system and don't have to render any textures pixel by pixel. After I was satisfied with the results of my 2D art experiments, I wanted to use a similar approach to create the city's sculptures. First thing I tried is using a number of pre-made models that I would combine into a sculpture, but I ran into the same problem I've mentioned before: repetition. So I felt that a similar procedural approach was needed, and although I can't recreate real-world sculptures in all their diversity, I found that I can imitate the abstract metal sculptures often found in real cities. And it turns out Unreal Engine already has a tool that I can use to generate and display them without a performance hit: Niagara Particle System. Yes, these are actually particle systems, even though they don't look it. This way, they are generated completely on the GPU and consume very little resources. These particle systems consist of two parts: the nodes that may or may not have 3D models at their locations, and the tubes connecting the nodes together, which can also vary in width. These nodes are spawned in a wave pattern on a cylinder with randomized parameters such as wave frequency, amplitude, and phase. Then I am taking advantage of rotational symmetry to duplicate these waves in a circle, creating the vase or cup-like shapes that you can see. And of course, like with everything procedural, one of the most important steps was tweaking the parameter ranges and their distributions in a way that creates something pleasing to look at most of the time. The range of shapes that can be created in this way is somewhat limited though, so I might add other techniques for more variety later on. But I really like them. I think that these sculptures add a clean, modern flair to the city. One downside of them being particle systems though is that I can't have accurate collisions for them. So for now I just added capsule collisions around them. That is a compromise I have to make, as runtime procedural collision is very computationally expensive. There are of course more types of art I would like to add to Vontra City. I have just started a collaboration with the shader artist Couture for these SDF animations on the city's billboards, which I'm very excited about. There are also screen animations in the city's interiors. Right now I'm using similar techniques to the paintings to render them, but only in two colors. But I am looking to replace them with something more interesting. If you have any other ideas on how I can make my procedural cities art more diverse without repetition, don't hesitate to let me know in the comments. Stay creative!